Into the Mandoverse. And we have 4 amazing guests that have worked with us here at the Virtual Cantina Network. Even, some Hall of Famer that we will be talking to today. Please go ahead and start preparing your own questions. I want this to be about you and what you want to hear from our guests today. So I'm going to ask you questions after I introduce them, and then I'm going to open it to the room. So let's start this out with, let's go with this one. You would see this person as the droid you can't avoid. So Mr. Chris Bartlett, you want to... In all of the Mandoverse shows. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm great, thanks.
And this is, I kind of guess we have to go with all of the rest of our guests are kind of people that you love to hate, maybe. I don't know. Don't even give me that one. Okay, so we'll go to that, and we'll look at here. Our next is going to be Chopper's favorite senator in the world is Nelson. Come on. And I don't want to say evil, maybe, but the Night Sister of Magic, Morgan Elsbeth Diana. And then, okay, maybe we can be conflicted about this person. Maybe conflicted about do we not like him? Do we like him? Dr. Pershing.
Excellent. So let me know if you can't hear me. I think you probably can. We're a little short of microphones, but I'll try and ask questions loudly. So let's start with, this is the Into the Mandoverse panel, and everybody has been in some sort of, Disney Plus, Mandalorian-esque inspired. Let's start with, do you guys on set, do you refer to this as the Mandoverse? Like, what do you call this universe that you are all helping to create and that you're a part of?
I just call it Star Wars. Representative of different chapters of storytelling. Oh, sorry. I call it Star Wars, but to me, every one of these shows represents, to me, a different chapter of storytelling on the timeline of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
We refer to ourselves as like part of the Star Wars family, right? Because it does feel like that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I feel like a 7-year-old flying a spaceship in an adult body dressed as a robot.
Oh yeah, me too.
So, I think you guys have worked with us enough to know that they kind of, we as Virtual Cantina Network sometimes refer to this as the Filoni-verse. I think Favreau might have a problem with that. Is that ever a term that's kind of like thrown? No.
I just hear in Filoni we trust everywhere.
But it is fun, story time with Dave. Like every day feels like story time.
Yes.
We'll be doing a scene, and then Dave will pause and say, well, the Jedi will do this because of these reasons. And that's really so fun. But he's very different from John. What do you say?
Yeah, they're different. To me, they're yin and yang to each other.
Yeah.
At least when I first worked with them on Mandalorian. So that's what I was definitely sensing from them. And in my experience, both these men changed my life. If it wasn't for John suggesting to Dave to find a female martial artist that knew martial arts and could hopefully act, I wouldn't be sitting up here today. I wouldn't. And then it was Dave Filoni who discovered me on Google because he found a trailer to a movie, an independent film that I wrote, directed, produced, and starred in. And that's how he discovered me, was the trailer and a picture. It was called The Sensei, and it was just, he typed woman martial artist or badass woman martial artist, and it took me to my photo, and literally led to the trailer to my movie, and the rest is history. Yeah.
So you can say the Google result of female badass.
Something like that. And he's also in a book called Badass Female Martial Arts. That's why I'm wondering, that's why Google led it to me. I just don't know.
Or you could have seen like an old episode of the Kung Fu magazine.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. So,
What I like about John on set, Jon Favreau, is he'll come on set in the morning and he'll say, we have like a robot, a little alien, a bounty hunter, a mayor of a town. And John will say, all right, remember when your dad taught you how to ride a bike? He was a little worried that you might wipe out, but he was excited you'll have this new freedom. You were super excited to ride a bike and be like the big kids and have all this freedom. You weren't even thinking about how you might injure yourself or the neighbors. He goes, that's what we're filming today. We're like, oh, that's so cool. That's when Grogu gets outfitted with IG-12 as a vehicle, And he just makes everything so relatable. I think that's really his strength. Yeah.
Well, Diane, you kind of stole a little bit of my next question, which is I want to know how, go down the road and go, how did each of you become involved in Star Wars? How did you start? How did something find you? How did you come into this world?
Just boring, old-fashioned audition, It's, of course, I've been a lifelong Star Wars fan, and also these things are so secretive. A lot of times you do these things, you have no idea what you're going for. So it's an untitled project. Untitled. I don't even think they said Star Wars. It was just untitled something, and the dialogue was completely fake. I did the audition. Didn't hear anything for probably almost a year, and then one day I just heard that I got it.
A year?
Maybe like 8 months. It felt like a long
But
time.
it feels like a year.
Yeah, it felt like a year.
8 months feels like a year.
But it was also long enough I'd forgotten about it. I was like, for what? And they said they still couldn't say anything. And I think it's Star Wars. Oh. and I also didn't know what it was, but until I found out first day on set what it really was.
I was always curious, did you ever look at Resistance? Because you like Christopher's dad, technically.
I only looked at it afterwards and I realized that also my character was voiced by my friend. Do you know Ty? Ty Mama?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Ty was my independent, yes.
Amazing legend of a Chinese actor. He's in everything. He's basically everyone's father. But he was playing Ziono, and older Ziono for Christopher Sean's Cats. So it was awesome. I went back and learned all that after. Yeah, did not know.
Do we have kids here? Yeah. I don't know. I have a PG version of how I got it. Anyway, sometimes I take cannabis to go to sleep. And I was shooting, working on American Gods, and internet. Oh shoot. Sometimes I say. And so I was in Toronto. It was 1 a.m. and I get this call from my agent, and I was like, why is he calling me at 1 a.m.? Looked at LA, it was 10 p.m. I'm like, this is either really good news or it's really bad news. Most likely, I'm getting fired off American Gods. That's why he's calling me.
Oh,
And I pick it up. I'm 3 or 4 hours into my sleep. And I pick it up and I'm like, huh? And then I hear this untitled Jon Favreau project, blah, 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 blah. I was like, the blah, blah, blah is me not understanding what he's saying because I was still asleep. And the Jon Favreau part I did get. I was like, can you say that one more time? He's like, blah, 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 untitled Jon Favreau project, blah, blah, blah. And I'm Googling untitled Jon Favreau project, and it's an untitled Star Wars show for a new streaming platform by Disney. And I was like, oh, is this the Star Wars thing? He's like, yeah. I was like, so what's happening? They want me to audition? He's like, no, they're offering you the role. I was like, yo, this is some good stuff. listen, none of this makes sense, call me tomorrow, this doesn't feel real, and sure enough, he called me tomorrow, the next day, and it was real, and so, it was a gift from the universe, and
it's weird, because it never does feel real. I mean, even when I was on the set, it didn't feel real, like, I can't believe I'm here, this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel like you're in this alternate universe, right?
yeah,
It's crazy.
so, yeah.
Long before the Mandalorian show, I was cosplaying at conventions because I wanted to be an actor and I didn't know how to do that. Like, what's the next step, or the first step? And so I was building costumes and playing these characters at Comic-Cons. I was improvising characters, but I was playing them for real because I'm a super nerd. I was, I like doing the voices and I like, embodying the energy of these characters. And then I spent 3 years and maybe built my own C-3PO costume. And I wore it, and a buddy of mine filmed it, and Lucasfilm apparently saw it, and I get an email that says, hello, we would like to, yeah, I thought it was going to be a cease and desist. Go back to yours. But it was, hi, we'd like to talk to you about your costume. We'd like to invite you to Lucasfilm for a meeting. And I was like, wow, this is everything I had hoped for after the 3 years of building it and growing up Star Wars. So we went in for, I finished assembling the costume at Lucasfilm, which is, again, another dream come true, I thought. And they finished up, they bolted me together and screwed my head on and turned on the lights. And listen, I really wanted to nail this audition. So I did my movement, I walked around and pretended like I was adjusting, things, whatever. And then I turned to them and I said, my goodness, why hello, I am C-3PO, Human Cyborg Relations. This is my counterpart, R2-D2. I am fluent in over 6 million forms. And they're like, that's enough. You're going to go to Australia and you're going to shoot this commercial. And I was like, wow. I mean, anyway, now next year it'll be 20 years that I've been playing C-3PO alongside Anthony Daniels for Lucasfilm and Disney. And so when they started casting for The Mandalorian, they brought me in for a screen test from zero because I possess a particular set of skills. And I got Q90, who's this bounty hunter droid who flies a ship in space and everything I ever wanted. Anyway, and they found out I had been building droid costumes, and they said, could you build one for us? I said, I already did. Here you go. Here's one I made. And they go, could you build another one? And it turned out I built 20 of them. All of them I wear on the shows. And that was my entrance into the Star Wars universe.
I think you will be more critical of this. How screen accurate was the
How screen accurate was the original?
one that you built.
Oh, that I built. Yeah, that was good. Man, I'm not going to tell you any of the blemishes because when you see it, it's all. Yeah. I will admit I'm about 1.5 to 2 inches taller than Anthony Daniels, but Lucasfilm said we just wanted to look good on you because you're the performer we want for the movement and that. So, yeah.
Well, let's take it a little bit further back than that. Not your entry into Star Wars as an actor, as a performer. What's your entry into Star Wars as a child, as an adult? How did you get into Star Wars, become familiar with Star Wars, be a part of this community that we're all into Star Wars?
Well, for me, it was when I was a little girl and my dad was doing an international martial arts seminar in Aspen, Colorado. And the Aspen, Colorado was uniquely different back then. It was kind of more small townish. And so, but people still gathered and they needed some form of entertainment. Everybody was talking about a project called Star Wars. It wasn't called A New Hope, it was just Star Wars. And so on a Saturday night, my dad and our family, along with the martial arts community that was there internationally, as well as the locals, we all went into this theater. And by the time you first start the beginning music of John Williams and the squirrel, you started to realize there was something very special happening. And then when you see the stories coming through the screen, you're going, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Imagine, I mean, we're so used to the technology, right? CGI. Back then, I had never seen this. The audience was going nuts. It was like the equivalent of the screaming, crazy rock concert. And by the time you get to the end of the movie, people were standing up, they were clapping. I had never experienced that kind of energy for a movie. And it was just brilliant. And you had families coming together and they were all shouting together. And what I really loved is strangely enough, my father, after we saw the film, he later turned to me and goes, wouldn't it be interesting if you could do a fight scene with 2 lightsabers? So the weird thing is my dad, who's a renowned martial arts teacher worldwide, and my godfather's the late Bruce Lee. So my dad has had to do a lot of years of making sure that his art and philosophy remains alive and well. And so he would train me as a little girl with 2 plastic lightsabers, which is really strange. And then I was always trained in different formats of martial arts weaponry, from the staff or the spear to, I can do 2 lightsabers, by the way. But it is strange that, flash forward, that I would get this opportunity to do this fight scene with Rosario with a spear against her 2 lightsabers. And I remember that moment on that bridge going, and I was just flashed back into my dad, and it's just so strange. Literally how the threads of fate worked out for me. Really wild.
A couple people have come to the table and asked me, and truthfully, I hadn't really seen Star Wars until I got the part in The Mandalorian. Oh, you guys aren't going? Okay, cool. I'm sad. No, but I have a very, very vivid memory. I moved to the States when I was 5-6 years old. I didn't speak English comfortably until I was 7 or so. And I remember I was the kid who always needed to play sports. I always had to play outside. And I remember being in daycare, because sometimes they would show movies inside for the kids who wanted to sit and watch a movie, and other kids who wouldn't like me wanted to just play ball. And I remember one time I came in to wash my hands and grab a snack, and they were showing A New Hope on the TV. And it was the part where Princess Leia is asking Obi for help, and she's a hologram. And I'd never seen a hologram in my life, and I was I stopped washing my hands. I remember, and I was is that real? Is that real life? Can someone be a hologram in real life? And I just remember, And then I went back to playing outside. And then fast forward to however many years later, I got to be a hologram on The Mandalorian, and for me it was full circle, even though I don't think I deserved it, but it was the coolest feeling. I remember that day so well. And fast forward, and I got to be, everyone's oh, sorry, Omid, you're working today, but it's just a hologram. I'm there's no such thing as just a hologram. I am so excited about this. So yeah. And then when I did get the part, I watched the entire catalog, and I became a genuine fan of the franchise. I was kicking myself for waiting so long, and I had a son, and we've been watching Star Wars together, so he's grown up with it right, and I caught him late, but I'm here,
Follow-up to that, was that before you got the part in Clone Wars, or before you got
so when I got Clone Wars, I didn't know anything about it. They were hey, who can do a Wookiee sound? Anybody, hey you want to do a Wookiee sound? I was don't know what that is. It was just 2 episodes. And it was, when I got The Mandalorian, just everything I do as an actor, I do the research. And so, I invested the time for The Mandalorian. Yeah. Don't ask me to do a Wookiee sound. I cannot. At the Fan Expo in Denver, they had to do it. It sounds like gargle and scope. That's what it sounds.
Yeah, I was 7 in 1977, and my parents took me. You know that the show, the film Star Wars, had been premiering and seeing trailers all over in front of other movies. So I was excited for it to come out. So we went down and waited in line and watched the show. And then when the film is over, that's it. There's no promise of sequels. There's no TV shows. All there is action figures. And so, of course, I saved up my allowance money and went down to the toy store and bought action figures. And then I would make up stories in the shag carpet in my living room. You know, everybody had Darth Vader and Luke, but what about like Snaggletooth and the Power Droid? Well, like, what's their story? So I was, that's how I got, introduced to Star Wars. But it wasn't until 1983 when they aired the making of Star Wars on, I think it was CBS at the time. And at the end of this, you get to see people who are making, stop motion animation or like building the costumes or doing the concept art or acting. And I remember at the end, this is 1983, saying, I want to work for George Lucas someday. There was only the 3 movies at that point. But I don't know how I would do that, so I just sort of like filed that in my brain, and so that's how I started to, as a 7-year-old.
So for me, I was 5 when I moved from Taiwan to Canada, and when we moved there, Star Wars had already come out, but we hadn't watched it. And there was this tradition my family did: we would rent a VHS machine, like it came in like a suitcase. And then you get to choose the movies. My brother and I chose Star Wars, and we watched it. And I remember it just kind of blew my mind. This New Hope, and I loved Yoda, I loved the Force. Like I used to always, and my brother knew this. He was older than me, and I used to I'd always be in the tub, and I'd always try to force open the door. And I didn't do it. So one day I was like going hard, and the door just went. I was like, I did it. Oh my God! But also, I think I was in 1st grade, and there was like a Halloween contest, and I went to like a Kmart, and I begged my mom to give me this Yoda costume, and I was like, and then she got me this Yoda mask, and I had this like little tunic that I put over, and I was convinced there was a prize for last person to be found in the costume. And I thought, there's no way this teacher will find out that it's me. So I put on my little Yoda mask, put on my tunic, and I was like, I'm completely invisible. You'll never figure it out. First thing the teacher goes, Nelson. I was like, your eyes. She's like, damn it. I don't raise it.
So talking about how first, we may notice a little bit of like age differences here. Is that some people on the panel here call the first movie, Episode 4, Star Wars, others A New Hope. That might be a gateway into some of the...
Or VHS versus...
I'm sorry, so it was not called Star Wars A New Hope when it first came out? It was just Star Wars?
Yeah, Star Wars.
Oh,
It wasn't until The Empire Strikes Back came out, I think, right? Or
Yeah.
did they because it stayed in theaters for a year.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Yeah, and you can just see the lines. My gosh, the lines outside the movie theaters. And for weeks, those lines were still consistent. Yeah.
Okay, this may be a sore subject for some of you, but what was your feeling the first time you saw yourself as an action figure?
You're the comic book, Marvel comic book, so.
Yeah.
How do you get a Funko? It's like.
In fairness, you saw your first movie at a time.
Oh yeah, it was custom made. That always feels cool when people custom it, but yeah, you do feel a little left left out when there was no official Hasbro.
Riverside trainer.
Yeah.
We need more Star Wars action figures. We need Dr. Pershing, we need Senators.
Is there not a Dr. Pershing?
No, there's not. It's the
It's a
easiest
great
thing. You just
fight.
hit that button, he goes up, don't shoot. Like, it's like,
Do your job.
robots.
Right. I found out the first figure that I had was Q90 as a Funko, and I was so excited. My phone started melting when people text me saying, "Hey, you have you're going to be a Funko." That was cool. That was really cool to all the Funko people listening. Yeah, it was very cool. And then the Black Series for Q90 came out. And for me, that was like, as a kid, now it's an action figure. It's a figure that I can like take out of the package and pose and do all the things that I did with it. And then when I found out there was a Black Series for One Jack, now I have like 3 action figures. And stop. I know. But they did have a lot of action. I think as a senator, we need to have, some more action.
The button just makes them go,
Do you know how many times I've been shot on that show?
Just too much action. Love is ours.
Yeah.
Love is here.
For me, it's surreal. It just is so surreal. And I mean, I love the Legos myself, but I love it all. The Funko Pops, all of it. But I use the action figurines for different reasons. I like to kind of tell off my kids, like, you didn't clean up the dog pee bag. So I always have my figurines and Morgan saying, clean us up or else, So yeah, that's what I do. So that's it.
It really is like icing on a 5-story cake.
Yeah.
Being
I did. We're talking about real hologram. We're talking about hologram people, like we always have our hands the same way. Like, words of advice, next time you do a hologram, just do something cool. Hands up.
Okay, so getting ready to open it up to questions from the audience. When I call on you, and I'll do my best to get to everyone, say your name, enunciate as best you can, say your name, ask your question. Please don't, ask for any favors. Can I get a hug? Can you loan me $5? Can you take a video for my granny that's 107 today that didn't make it to the show?
Can you make me a Funko Pop?
So, first question.
Okay, to continue on the merch, since not everyone has action figures, you all have trading cards. Right?
There used to be a campaign with Star Wars fans. Yes. There should be a campaign.
Yeah, I just saw recently the Star Wars Unlimited game. I went to say hi, and that was cool. So I got to feel and experience a little bit of what you guys did.
Yeah, the Star Wars Unlimited game. It's like a card.
It's a special card.
And it went crazy. They're playing when he walked in.
One of the best terminal places.
See, I appreciate that. When I first saw it, I was like, this is weak. It's got like 0 hit points.
Yes, sir. Oh, sure.
So, you're all Star Wars fans, some more recent than others. What's your favorite scene in the entire franchise?
Favorite scene in the entire franchise?
Yeah, can I answer this? Because it's so easy for me. It was when Anakin and Obi, and Mustafar, when he's like, I loved you. That scene brought a tear to my eye. So yeah, it's that one.
My favorite scene is from Empire Strikes Back, and it is when Skywalker is discovering and understanding who Darth Vader really is, and discovers that that's his father, and he's like, no! I'm like, oh my gosh, and that's when I thought, wow, Star Wars is really going deep now in the psychology things that we see in our society. So that's my favorite scene.
Wait, so how old were you when you saw this?
I was in junior high school at that time.
Okay, you know, okay. Now, did you believe Darth Vader? Did you believe it was real? He was telling the truth?
I assumed, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I went to school, to the playground, and I was like, no, he's lying. He's a bad guy. He's the bad guy.
I can see
Baddest
why
guy.
you would think that, but yeah.
Luke is the good guy. He's not, Luke doesn't believe him.
Yeah.
If Luke doesn't believe him, I'm not
He's
gonna
been
believe him.
evil, and now evil is in your,
Yeah.
your others, yeah.
So I had to wait 3 years before Return of the Jedi to find out
Oh my
he was telling the truth.
Wow.
Yes, I was mortified.
It's like a soap opera, right? Yeah, no, I can see why it works.
I mean, it's hard not to love. I love that battle in the Empire, and then that revelation, and then also I love the fight of Jedi when he's like, it's just, and he comes out like, no! It's also hard not to love that moment when Han Solo she says, I love you. He's like, I know. It's so badass. It's so good.
Yeah, sure.
Are we just talking about the movies?
The whole version.
Everything. I mean, my favorite was the day that I got to fly a ship in Star Wars. The best scene I've ever seen. The acting was incredible.
Tell me toys.
Yeah, right. No, the reason why is because as kids, you know, we built spaceships out of cardboard boxes that used to be refrigerators, and so I knew that this day was coming, that I was going to be filming flying the ship, because I had the whole script. And so the night before, I was like, oh, I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to be late. I set like 4 alarms, and I got myself so wound up that I didn't go to sleep. I couldn't sleep. And so the next day, I was early. You know, I got to set early. I was like 5 a.m. And then John said, all right, Chris, why don't you go get familiar with the cockpit? We're going to finish up over here. And I was like, oh yes. I went over, the lights were low, all the buttons all worked, so of course I had to push them all and all that. And I'm sitting in Mando's seat in the Razor Crest, and I was just let out this big sigh as my life of fandom flashed before my eyes. And I passed out. I'm dreaming about Jon Favreau talking to me, like, Chris, you doing okay? And I'm wearing the helmet. You know, I'm wearing Q90, I'm sitting in the seat, and I wake up to Jon Favreau standing here going, Chris, are you all right? And I was like, what? I'm fine. We're ready, let's go. We're not sleeping, of course, duh. And so it was, and then the whole, rest of the week as we were filming all those scenes was the best scene in Star Wars for me. Because I was having the time of my life. It affected me in ways that, you know, I couldn't match with anything else. So maybe that was selfish.
You got the whole script?
Yeah.
I didn't get the whole script.
Well, you need a couple of action figures, I think.
I got napkins.
Right here.
Take it.
Hi, my name is Michael, and I too grew up thinking that Vader was lying. And I also wanted to thank you for making glasses canon. I just wondered how much input you were able to give to your characters and how they were portrayed.
Well, as far as the glasses go, it was not my idea. Like when I showed up, they had kind of like a sketch of what they had my face on a drawing, and then they had these like glasses that were circular, but they didn't attach in the middle. They went around the ears, and so when I tried it on, they kind of just like. That's good in theory. It'd be good for animation. But so they're like, here's 30 glasses, pick one out. And as soon as I saw the one I ended up using, I was like, this is it. And as soon as I put it on, you know, it was like hitting a light switch, and I felt like the character. Like if I had to rehearse in these glasses, I didn't feel like Dr. Pershing. But as soon as I put those on, it was like a mask.
Were they all different shapes? Were they all different shapes?
The different glasses? Yeah, there were all kinds of glasses. Yeah. So the ones I actually picked were from the 60s. Yeah, one of a kind, yeah.
So in my case, I was really following Dave's lead on this character. I mean, in my audition, I had done some preliminary work of how I saw this character, and apparently it rang true for what Dave was looking for, but then he would add new information all the time, just spoofing just different things. But the only thing I got to choose, honestly, was like the bowl where I'm feeding the fish. And that was cute, the way Dave did that. I thought that was adorable. And then he did let me have some say-so on the blade, the Tom's blade. That was very important to me because I was going to have to wield that thing. And I basically liked if anybody's studied sword work from Thailand, we have a system called Kapikran. So I pretty much kind of said, I like this design. And so Doug was working with me and Josh and that whole team, and that was great. However, I didn't know that they wanted to have a wushu element to this, and that I would have changed up because the handle you use, it was more like two-handed, even though you can use it one-handed. I just would have changed it up a little bit. But other than that, that's the only kind of flavor I could add to my character. Everything else was based on research I did, and as far as being in the family of what was happening to the Night Sisters and what was happening with Thrawn, and Timothy Zahn played a special, it was very important to me in my research, so.
Yeah, I mean, as far as input and stuff, it's the great thing about working with someone like Dave Filoni is that he's Dave Filoni. And I felt so lucky that first day I come on set, I researched after getting it, but I didn't know a lot. And he just came up to start talking to me, like you're talking about storytelling with Dave. He just came up and was like, hey, so this guy, he just starts giving me all the lore of Xiono and Kaz and everything Resistance. But the great thing about it is we're creating the canon now. Before, which is so exciting and awesome. And while I didn't have any input in what was being said, he was so open to talking to me about who this guy was, what makes him tick. Is he bad? Is he good? Is he in the middle? And it's that kind of freedom and kind of trust really empowers you as an actor. It's something that's very rare, especially in something like this. This is Star Wars, for God's sake. I'd be fine. They're like, shut up, get your mark, say this. I'd be yes, sir. But the fact that they actually allow you to come in and have that creativity, it's wonderful.
I feel like we might be downplaying this because as actors, everything you do is you bring ideas to your character and how your character is going to be, his energy or his or her personality can really is shaped by the way that what you bring to it as an actor.
You also make yourself.
Yes. I think I might have mentioned, did I mention building little droids? Yeah. Yeah. So that was, sorry, I didn't want to repeat this. Integral part of this. No, anyway, but as actors, John says, I want you to be on time, know your material, and bring ideas. So as a creative, this is a creative principle, don't ever feel like you need to ask permission to do a creative thing. Just do it. Because if the director doesn't like it, or your boss, or your parent, whatever, they'll just say, all right, let's do take two. Now think of it this way. Do it that way. But just do it. Just try it in anything that you want to do that is a new idea that you're having. So I would come with voices. I would look at the costume, read the script, and this is a kind of a sinister character or whatever. And so the very first episode, there's a character called the Ferryman, he's a snouted Kubaz species who's calling speeders over for Mando, and Mando doesn't like the droids. And the lines were all in English. So when I went in we did the rehearsal, I was like, maybe this guy sounds like an old Soviet used car salesman. And so we start reading, and I go,
Oh, but I assure you, the speeder is brand new. We just arrived on the Speedway freighter.
And John goes, all right, that's good. Let's cartoon it down a little. I go, yeah, I can do that. I can cartoon it down. So, did something a little different. And then Dave says, I wonder if this would speak an alien language. Because Kubaz in A New Hope sounds like and there was some discussion about subtitles and stuff, and I said, we're Star Wars fans are used to subtitles, that's totally fine, Jabba the Hutt, Greedo, and you know. So yeah, just go with whatever you want. I of course would like to do the voice, but you know, whatever's right for the character. But man, there's 100 stories like that where we bring creative ideas, and they're so collaborative, you know, with what ends up on screen. So you know, actors, that's part of the job, is to bring ideas that, you know, for the character.
I think we have time for one. Okay, let's speed round, super fast, go.
So back to what your favorite scene. What's your favorite scene to film?
Sorry, what?
What's your favorite scene to film?
Okay, I'll start. My favorite day as an actor ever was during the Monument Park scene on Coruscant. It was during COVID when we shot it, and the only way I could bring my family on set to watch me was to put my son in the background as an actor. And so I got to share, to be on set with my son in the scene. I was like, hey, buddy, as soon as they yell action, I'm not your daddy, okay? That's the fast version. So anyways, when I'm talking to Katie, and I hear laughter, that's my son, I hear it, and I see The Rock, and I'm like, hey, what is that thing? So that is not just the best day as an actor, but that is the best day of my life.
For me, there's so many wonderful scenes that I love to enjoy filming, and it's really hard because I real quickly, the day that I had to go back to Mandalorian because the Jedi episode was very important. That was the day when Dave Filoni was filming us, John was walking around, that George Lucas came to visit the set and watch us film our fight scene, which was really my heart going, oh my God, George is here, but it was such an honor to be introduced to him. John had said, this is George, like, this is George, this is Kathleen, and I'm like, you know, and it was just beautiful to hear George talk about Kurosawa and, you know, the influence of martial arts in Star Wars. So that was a real treat. That was probably my favorite day to film.
Very quickly, easily for me was the day I shot with C-3PO in the room. And it's like, Anthony was the most loveliest man. He came up with me right in the beginning. He said, well, it's not enough, I'm going to try to do it. It's not as impressive in person. You know, it's just classic clapping. But then the first scene take you do, he comes in, and I'm doing the take, so I was like, very nonsense. But yes, it was amazing to have him there.
I already answered that.
Yes,
for Chris, you have a unique license. Your face is covered, and you get to play multiple roles, and you could even play one live action without you showing your face. What is something you wish you could play?
Well, definitely Senator.
Yeah.
No, just Imperial officer, you know, I love. I'd really have to work on not, you know, being sinister. But no, I'd love to do something that's, you know, kind of a bad guy.
Yes. I don't know if you can say this is for Chris as well, but are you in the new movie?
Oh, that's a great question. Anyway, thanks for coming, everyone.
So yes, on that, if there are any more questions, these guys are signing autographs out there on the floor. Go see them, and they can get to the rest of the questions. And let's just give everybody else another round.